policies at the Pretoria Girls High School has now spread to Cape Town. Allegations of racism have surfaced at a girls' high school in Cape Town. Learners at the San Souci School say their code of conduct and hair policy is indeed outdated. Well, Sarah Gon is a research fellow at the South African Institute of Race Relations. She joins us now to share her insight on social cohesion and managing diversity at school level. Good afternoon, Sarah, and thank you for your time on the SABC News Desk.
Thanks, Krishna.
Racial tension still clearly persisting at some of our schools. How do we best handle social cohesion and diversity management at school level at this juncture, Sarah?
It's actually quite difficult to say. In reality, I think cohesion and the management of racial issues at school level is actually probably quite good, because if you look at it, there've been the Pretoria Girls incident, there is the San Souci incident, but it hasn't as yet spread further than that, which suggests that it may not be quite as big an issue or as widespread an issue as we think it might be, because although the protests are vociferous and very, very public.
So it does look like the demographic of these schools have changed, but the policies haven't been kept up to date. Now, the Minister of Basic Education earlier this week saying it's not a racial problem but a policy one. Does she have a point?
She may well have a point. Interestingly, perhaps I can give an example. I had a chance to look at the Pretoria Girls policy on hair, and it's strict, as many schools are, particularly monastic schools, but it's pretty fair. It does allow braiding, it does allow cornrows, it does allow extensions, and we know that there, for example, there are high schools in Soweto that don't allow braiding. So it's not necessarily, some of the policies of some of the schools may well be out of date, without a doubt. For example, in the Pretoria Girls case, the policy doesn't deal with afros, and I suspect the reason is probably because afros have only fairly recently come back into fashion. So the policy may simply be, they haven't yet had an opportunity to deal with the issue. It depends on case by case.
So what should a cohesive, unified society look like by this point?
Dare I say that the chances are we'll never really be cohesive or unified, but that is not necessarily a bad thing. And I say that because we are all so different. We have different views, we come from different backgrounds, we're different colours, we're different religions. So our cohesion is going to come and go. It will depend on issues that come up. It depends on where we are in a given time. It also depends, unfortunately, on things like how bad the economy is. And that may put stresses on society. I think we have a lot more that we would agree about than that we would disagree about. It's a question of actually getting all parties the opportunity to comment on issues that potentially divide us.
It does sound very much like a work in progress, but the National Development Plan has set 2030 as a deadline for nation building and social cohesion, and it says by then South Africans should be more conscious of the things they have in common than their differences. Will we reach a point where apartheid is no longer a part of our living memory, and to what extent will that aid in our social cohesion, and more importantly, is all this achievable in 15 years or so?
I think it is unrealistic in issues as complex as societal change to set time frames on them. I don't think apartheid will ever not be a part of our discourse, because it was so much a part of our history. It's relatively recent. It's painful. It will always play a role. The question is to what extent that we create a political and economic society that lessens the effects and make people more well disposed to other people. And I don't think you can put a time limit on it. I just think you've always got to be working on it and dealing with the problems as they arise.
Thank you for your time on the SABC News Desk, Sarah. Sarah Gon is a research fellow at the South African Institute of Race Relations. Let's move on to some other